Hello, everyone, and welcome to lesson number 11 of this wonderful book, Prosperity by Charles Fillmore. I'm Reverend Wally White with Unity in Greensboro, and here is my wonderful co-minister, Reverend Todd.
Hey, friends, I'm Reverend Todd. I am the spiritual leader at Crystal Coast Unity in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. And we're back again today to talk about Charles Fillmore's incredible text, Prosperity. We're getting ready to start on lesson 11. And we just want to remind everyone, if you have any comments, type them in the chat. Have any questions, type them in the chat. You're wrestling with anything, or you have an aha moment. And we hope you're having these aha moments. So let us know, right?
Yeah, we want to hear about it. We want you to talk with us and talk with each other. I think, the real growth comes in, for me, comes in conversation. So let's use this as a time to do that as well. And let's all grow together. And as I've said before, I promise you there are no dumb questions. And if you're thinking it, so is somebody else somewhere. So if you're asking, you're not only getting your own help, you're helping someone else by asking the question or pointing out whatever maybe you saw that someone missed because they had connected to something else. But then when you point it out, they'll be like, oh, wow. So help us all have those aha and oh, wow moments.
Yeah,
So, all right. Shall I start reading a little bit here?
I think that sounds great.
All right. So this is lesson 11, laying up treasures. Can't wait to see what he says about that. After the multitude had been fed by the increase of the loaves and fishes, Jesus commanded that they gather up the fragments so that nothing might be lost. And they all ate and were filled, and they took up that which remained over the broken pieces, 12 baskets full. Any form of waste is a violation of the divine law of conservation. Everywhere in nature, there is evidence of stored up energy substance ready for use when needed. This reserve force is not material but spiritual. It is ready to be called into expression to meet any need. But when it is not put to use or called into expression, there is a manifestation of inharmony or lack either in the body of man or in its outer supply. It is in his wrong conception of this spiritual force that man makes the mistake of falling into the habit of hoarding instead of conserving. He tries to gather things together in the external in a vain effort to avert an imagined shortage in the future, and he counts himself rich by the amount of his material possessions. Spiritually awakened people are coming to know that all riches are spiritual and within the reach of all as divine ideas. They study the law of conservation as it pertains to the spiritual and seek to build up a large reserve consciousness of substance, life, strength, and power, rather than laying up material treasures that moth and rust consume and thieves break through and steal. Men and women scatter their energies to the four winds in the efforts to satisfy the desires of the flesh and then wonder why they do not demonstrate prosperity. If they only realize the truth that is that this same thought force can be conserved and controlled to express itself in constructive channels, they would soon be prosperous. Spirit must have substance to work on, and there must be substance in the ideas of your mind. If your substance is going here, there, and everywhere, being spent in riotous thinking, how can it accumulate to the point of demonstration? Such a waste of substance is a violation of the law of conservation, a law that all should know. When you overcome your desire for dispensation, not the overt acts only, but the inner desire, then you will begin to accumulate substance that must manifest itself as prosperity according to the law. One of the
Can we pause?
fundamental principles. What's that? Yeah.
Yeah, let's pause for 1 second because
Yeah.
I want to encourage everybody to underline this one thing, and I want to tie it to one of our 5 foundational principles, right? If your substance is going here, there, and everywhere, being spent in riotous thinking, how can it accumulate to the point of demonstration? This question that he asks in this paragraph, underline that, because this right here underscores the importance of meditation, right? Because if our thinking, right, is here, there, and everywhere, and riotous thoughts in our minds, and we don't calm down our thinking, our mental faculty, then we can't concentrate to bring forth the substance into expression, right? So
Right.
that right there, that question underscores why we always return to this idea that meditation and prayer are part of a spiritual life so that we can enjoy and experience all our good, all our prosperity. That's the only thing I wanted to say, Wally. And you
Yeah,
can
that's
comment
good.
or you can keep
Because I think I say often that, at the end of the day, all of the unity teachings, in my perspective, come back to our thinking and our feeling. And as you're saying, pointing out here, if your thinking is all over here, then your feeling's not going to be calm. Your feeling is not going to be prosperous, because what does prosperity feel like? Good. Like all the different levels of good. What prosperity doesn't feel like is bad, you know. And so, like, calm is feeling good. And so that feels like a really oversimplification. But if you can start there, then maybe you get to other complex areas of prosperity. But if you're not starting with that peace, calm, focused mind, consciousness, then it's difficult to get to the rest of it. I think that's a great thing to point out.
very good.
Well, let me see. As I'm recording right now, I see that Reverend Todd has frozen. Oh, there is he there? He looks frozen up to me, and
And
sometimes
see,
that means I'm
you
frozen
look
up. But
frozen to me. Now we're both
am
moving.
I? Are we?
Not
We're
anymore.
moving again,
Now we're
everybody.
moving.
All right. Welcome to the virtual world of recording. So, all right. So let's get back into this. The bottom of 160. One of the fundamental principles in the study of Christianity is that God's great objective is the making of a perfect man. Man is the apex of creation, made in God's image and likeness, and endowed with the full authority and dominion over his elemental thoughts. Be clear, man here is being used in the term of human, not the male versus the female. All sexes, all genders are being called man right here. We sometimes think that we must succeed in some business or occupation before we can become rich or famous. This is missing the mark of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus, which is to demonstrate the divine idea of a perfect man. The real object of life is not making money or becoming famous, but the building of character, the bringing forth of the potentialities that exist in every one of us. A part of the divine plan is substantial provisions by the Creator for all the mental and physical needs of his creation. We are not studying prosperity to become rich, but to bring out those characteristics that are fundamental to prosperity. I think you all know, I'm going to read that sentence again. We are not studying prosperity to become rich, but to bring out those characteristics that are fundamental to prosperity. We must learn to develop the faculty that will bring prosperity and the character that is not spoiled by prosperity. Faith is the faculty of mind that deals with the universal substance idea. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. Everything in God is ideal without form or shape, but with all possibilities. He is omnipresent in our mind and in our bodies. It is in our body that we bring God into visible manifestation. Faith is the faculty that does this. It lays hold of the substance idea and makes it visible. The scramble for wealth seems to be the only object of existence for certain minds. Writers of biblical times are incessantly preaching against the evils of money. Yet Jehovah was always promising riches and honor to all those who kept his commandments. The gold and silver that God promised were spiritual rather than material. God is mind, and mind can give only ideas. These ideas can be translated into terms of gold or of anything else we desire according to our thought. The only treasures that are worth saving are those we lay up in the heavens of the mind. The only gold that can be trusted to bring happiness is the gold of spirit. Jesus says, I counsel thee to buy of me gold refined by fire, that thou mayest become rich, and white garments, that thou mayest clothe thyself, that the shame of thy nakedness be not made manifest. I'm ready to stop and discuss, but I want to go a little bit further because that feels like an odd place to stop. God is not saying that you have to give refined gold or wear white. That is a metaphysical interpretation. So let's see what comes in this next chapter before we stop. Paul tells us that the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. That means, of course, that by loving money, man has in some way limited it. He has not loved the true source of money, but has loved the thing rather than the spirit that it expresses. He has broken the law by trying to grasp the thing and failing to acknowledge the idea that lays back of it. We must know this law, observing it in the handling of money, and make love the magnet of supply instead of becoming entangled in the selfishness and greed which is causing so much inharmony and suffering in the world today. We should know that there is a universal money substance and that it belongs to all of us in all its fullness. Let's stop and talk for a minute here. That last paragraph really does, it brings up something that I dare say no one who is going to tune into this has not heard and discussed in some form within church or within their like-minded conversations about the love of money versus money itself being evil. At the end of the day, this isn't about the money. This is saying whether you're talking about money, love, a particular kind of house, car, all those things, if your love, if your emotion is attached to the after effect instead of the thing that brings it about, it's not even about some evil like what you see in a movie. It's simply saying you're disconnected from the law. You're disconnected from the flow because you're looking outside instead of within you out. So you can't get there because that's just not how the law works. It's not about punishment. It's about expecting a result that you're not currently participating in the law to get. How does that work?
That summed it up really nicely. If you don't do the inner work, right? And this is we forget this so often because sometimes we'll do the inner work and we'll have the outward manifestation, and then we attach to the outward manifestation, and guess what? Then we don't become in consciousness what we need to be to maintain what we have manifested, and then it goes away.
Right.
Right? Life must continuously be lived from the inside of consciousness outward into the manifest world. It all
And I
begins
love
in.
how Charles Fillmore puts it in here, really making it abundantly clear. God is communicating with us through mind, which means ideas. So God is not the end result. God is the creation of the result. The end result is part of the physical world that we're in, that is ours to have dominion over, and all of that sort of thing. How do we gain that dominion? We use our divine ideas, we use our spiritual nature in letting it flow out. So when we really want to connect, and we want to say, well, what's God's will on this, so that if it's bad, we've got somebody to blame. It's like God's will is always good. So if you've not gotten to the good, you've not gotten to God's will yet. That's the answer to that. And if you're stopping at, well, it didn't work out, I guess that's God's will. No, that's on you. It's not on God. It's a decision. And look, sometimes we may just get tired of the journey, and it may feel like too bumpy of a road. I promise the end result is always good, is always God. But sometimes it may just not feel worth it. And that's fine to say, I'm done. But then don't turn around and blame somebody else, because the blame is not getting you to your spiritual nature. And look, I'm not just talking to other people. I'm really having a good, deep conversation with me right now when I say that. I'll tell you how you always know when I'm really talking to myself. The sterner I get, the slightly chance of sounding rude I get, I'm talking to me.
No negative self-talk.
Because it's easy to get to this place of like, I just want it. I just want the end result. I want the good end result. And the best lesson, and I'm sure that somewhere in now the 11 weeks of this, I've said it before, because it's really one that I'm always able to be like, got it, is there's a recording of Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, and they're in, I believe, Seattle, getting ready to leave on an Alaskan cruise. But that evening, they're still at the port. And she's like, so is this about getting the $1 million, or is this about the journey? Do you want to enjoy the journey to getting the $1 million, or do you just want the $1 million? And a bunch of people are like, I just want the $1 million. And she said, okay, well, if the end result is the only thing that matters, get off the boat, because we're about to leave port and go to Alaska and then come right back here where we are now. So if the end result is the only thing that matters, leave. You're already here. Because then, of course, it's like, well, no, of course I want the journey of this cruise that I'm on. And so the same thing of whatever it is that we're laying our claims, whether it be on January 1 and it's a New Year's resolution, or whether it's in our letters to God that we've done as part of the Burning Bowl, or whether it's August 1st and you just want to set some new goals for yourself. It's then about the journey and having fun and recognizing some of the bumps, and maybe finding your way to, for people who like roller coaster rides as an example. See, that's not always fun to me. But part of what's not fun to people on a roller coaster is the fear of some of, the speed and the right. So find a way to always acknowledge, I'm already one with God. I already win. I'm on a ride. I'm on a journey. I don't even know if I'm still on topic, but I think it was a good conversation.
It was very good.
All right, let me get a drink in here and we'll start reading again. In the parable of the sower, Jesus uses a most striking phrase. Part of the good seed was choked out by thorns, and the thorns represent the deceitfulness of riches. Money is indeed a cheat. It promises ease and brings care. It promises pleasures and pays with pain. It promises influence and returns envy and jealousy. It promises happiness and gives sorrow. It promises permanence and then flies away. Metaphysically, it is better, or at least safer, to be poor than to be rich. Jesus taught this in the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man is pictured in torment, crying for the poor man to give him a drink of water. But if the rich are miserable, the poor who greatly desire to be rich are equally so. Poverty and riches are the two poles of a magnet whose pivot is a belief in the possession of matter will bring joy to the possessor. This belief is a delusion, and those who are attracted by this belief and allow their minds to be hypnotized by the desire for material possessions are to be pitied, whether their desire is realized or not. The real possessor of wealth. All right, we're getting there. I was frankly a little uncomfortable in some of that conversation because it starts to look like it's saying it's better to be poor, and it is better to be prosperous, not rich, prosperous. Let's see what he says about that. The real possessor of wealth is the one who feels that all things are his to use and to enjoy, yet does not burden himself with the personal possession of anything. Diogenes was a most happy man, though he lived in a tub. I don't know who that is, so I may have said the name wrong, but I hope you know who I'm talking about. His philosophy has outlived the influence of the rich and powerful people who were his contemporaries. He walked around with a lantern at midday looking for an honest man, so that they seem to have been as rare in his day as in ours. However, the widespread desire for material possessions indicates that there is somewhere some good in it. The natural man is from the soil, formed of the dust of the ground, and loves his native element. The spiritual man is from above, originating in the heavens of the mind. It is given first place, and like Jacob, supplants the natural man. Men should not condemn the earth because of this, yet they should not love it for the exclusion of the heavens. They should understand that substance is the clay from which the Father makes the body of his people. Your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of all these things, but seek ye first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Seek ye first comes up a lot. It comes up a lot for me sometimes in meditation and that sort of thing. But it's come up quite a lot in this study in prosperity. Seek ye first. If you want these things, don't seek the things, seek the kingdom. How do you do that? How do you seek the kingdom? The kingdom is that harmonizing of our spiritual truth, which is God is good all the time. That's a simplification of that, right? But God is good all the time. That's our kingdom. Now, we harmonize that with the physical experience that likes to prove that there is some things that are not good all the time. And then it's on us to find the harmony of our own existence within that. Seek that, and then the good things will come. And what I've learned, and let me know what you think, Todd. What I've learned is sometimes when if I seek the kingdom first, the things that were on the list often show up. But other times, in seeking the kingdom first, the list rewrites itself, because it turns out those weren't the things I really needed to be truly prosperous and at peace and in harmony in the first place.
Absolutely. It's when we don't seek the kingdom first, right? We are placing our emphasis on the material world, right? And we become attached, and we decide that this is what success looks like. This is what prosperity looks like. This is what me having my good is going to look like, because I'm attaching it to the manifest world. And that in and of itself limits how our good can come to us and what it can show up as. And when we seek the kingdom first, and the kingdom, right? If we know that God is omnipotence and omniscience, and is all knowledge, right, is all wisdom, then when we seek the kingdom first, we suddenly realize and understand that our prosperity far exceeds any limits that we've put onto it. And therefore, the list rewrites itself because we suddenly have greater knowledge, greater understanding, a greater vision, because that's available to us when we, step into the kingdom, seek the kingdom.
And the question I'm hearing in my head that people are asking, and that certainly part of me would have asked at some point too, and maybe sometimes still if I get clouded up in life, is, well, how do you do that? How do you seek the kingdom? And I mean, my first answer is two things. One is in making that your expectation, that I'm looking for the good, that I'm looking out into, I'm wide awake, I'm walking around in my human experience. So I'm going to expect to find and look for good. um I call that the Mr. Rogers' mother example, right? Of her telling him to look for the helpers on the news instead of at the bad thing. And then
Right.
the other part is what, Todd, you already brought up a few minutes ago, which is meditation. Not just prayer and meditate. The prayer is in setting the expectation, is in getting our mind aligned with spirit. For me, the easiest explanation of prayer, what is prayer versus meditation, is prayer is us talking, our asking, our affirming, and then meditation is us shutting it and listening. Meditation is about listening for the small voice. See, I'm talking to myself again because I was basically saying shut up. And I would never say that to other people, but I say it to me all the time, like, you need to shut up and listen. You need to, one mouth, two ears. There's your indication of which one is higher of value. Use these, listen, and you do that by getting quiet and getting into that place of meditation where the answer will always flow eventually.
Yes. Great conversation as always.
Yeah. You feel like reading for a little bit?
I am absolutely happy to, but I just dropped my book, and so I need you to it shut when it fell.
Yeah, let me see where I ended. I think let's see where I got us to. I think it's the last paragraph on the bottom of 164, when we have recognized the truth. Yeah, I think that's where we ended.
Okay. Have to put on the glasses now. When we have recognized the truth of the omnipresence of God as substance and supply for every need, there will be no occasion for holding back part as Ananias and Sapphira did. We cannot hoard money in its material phase without breaking the law, which is that we have all the substance necessary for our supply. We ask the Lord for our daily bread and expect to have it, but we do not get an accumulation that will spoil on our hands or that will deny the proper supply to another man. The metaphysical idea of this part of the Lord's Prayer is, give us this day the substance of tomorrow's bread. We ask not for bread, but for the substance that Spirit arranges to manifest as bread, clothing, shelter, or the supply for any need we may have. Substance in the form of money is given to us for constructive uses. It is given for us and it is given for use and to meet an immediate need, not to be hoarded away or to be foolishly wasted. When you have found freedom from the binding thought of hoarding money, do not go to the opposite extreme of extravagant spending. Money is to be abused, not money is to be used, not abused. It is good to keep one's obligations paid. It is good to have some money on hands for good uses, such as hospitality, education, for developing industries that will contribute to the good of numbers of people, or for the furtherance of spiritual work, for helping others to build useful and constructive lives, and for many other purposes and activities. But in such conservation of money, one should keep ever in mind the necessity of a constructive motive back of the action. Money accumulated for a definite and definitely constructive purpose is quite a different thing from money hoarded with the fearful thought of a rainy day or a prolonged season of lack and suffering. Money saved for rainy days is always used for just that, for fear attracts that which is feared unfailingly. The thing which I fear cometh upon me. Money saved as an opportunity fund brings an increase of good, but money hoarded from fear as a motive or with any miserly thought in mind cannot possibly bring any blessing. Those who hold the thought of accumulation so adamant in the world today are inviting trouble and even disaster. Because right along with the thought goes a strong affirmation of the fear of loss of riches. Their actions bespeak fear, and the loss they dread is certain to be manifested sooner or later. The worldly idea of prosperity is based on the wrong idea of supply. One may have the right idea about the source of riches as spiritual, and yet have the wrong idea about the constancy of supply as an ever-present, freely flowing spiritual substance. God does not clothe the lilies in a moment and then leave them to the mercy of lack. He gives them the continuous supply necessary to their growth. We can rest assured that He will much more clothe us and keep us clothed from day to day according to our need. When we doubt this and place our dependence on stored up money instead, we shut off the stream of divine supply. Then, when our little accumulation is spent, stolen, or lost, we are like the prodigal son, and we begin to be in want. Jesus did not own a foot of land, yet never did he lack for anything needed. Without laying up treasures on earth, he was rich in consciousness of the treasures of heaven within himself, treasures ready to be manifested in the outer whenever he needed them. We know perfectly well that sooner or later we shall have to let go of our earthly possessions. Does this bring the thought of death and of leaving the world behind? Then it shows what a powerful hold this race belief of worldly wealth has taken in your mind. Men can think of letting go of their material possessions only in connection with death. They seem to prefer death to giving up their idea of wealth. When they make such a choice, they decree what shall come to pass for them. That is why it is hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. He has laid up treasures on earth and not enough in heaven. He has not made it possible for his mind to lay hold of the positive pole of wealth, the true idea of wealth. He is holding to the negative side of the wealth idea, and that side is always changing. Material things pass away unless they are firmly connected with the unchanging positive source.
Can I just say that I don't think I've ever heard that put better. Like, I've heard the lesson about Jesus saying it being hard for the wealthy man to get in, and I've even given metaphysical lessons about that, about like where we're focusing our thoughts on and our beliefs on. But I've never heard it put any better than these words right here in that lesson. It's not about what you have or do not have on the physical plane. It is about how you are thinking and feeling about what you have and don't have. That ends up being that place of that shift, right? Because heaven is where? Here. It's in our own minds. It's in our own consciousness. And so if you're so locked in on the thoughts of the physical stuff, and you are never going to get me to say that the physical stuff is bad, because I like to use it. I like having it. I like having fun with it. I like hanging out with rich people that have cool things, but I don't think they're better people because of it. I just think they have cool things that are fun to play with, right? And I'm in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. But for many years of my adulthood, I lived in 2-bedroom apartments with a roommate that I had to share a bathroom with. So when I got into a house that has one extra bedroom and still only one bathroom, but I don't have to share it with anybody, I felt rich when I moved in here. I love my house. But if you compare my house against many other people's, I start to look poor again. If I'm comparing myself against other people instead of my own experience and how I feel about it. Now, does that mean that if you showed up and said, here, well, I'm going to give you the keys to a mansion, that I'm going to say, no, no, I'm fine where, hell no, I'm going to move into the mansion. But, but it is about the thought process. It's not about the stuff. I don't think that can be said enough. To me, I don't think I can say it to myself enough that I remind, because I have fun playing with the cool, expensive stuff. But then I have to be like, yes, that was a fun experience. And when I need it again, it'll flow its way, and I don't have to like focus my entire mind on, well, I need to go get a different job that pays more so that I can pay to do this. Well, why? There's somebody else out there that already has the money to pay for it, and they invited me to participate. So and in the process, if I'm really living in the flow, I'm going to have something that benefits them, whether it costs $20 or $20,000 too. Like, it doesn't have to be a tit for tat. Like, if they had some expensive activity that I got to participate in, I don't suddenly have to come up with this. And likewise, if I had something that cost a lot of money that somebody else got to participate in, they don't owe me at a dollar amount. It's about the experience. Like, if we're in the heavenly thought of it, it's about the experience, the thought, the feeling, not about the price and the affluence that we attach to a definition of it. Let me step back down. Again, I don't even have the pulpit here, but I start preaching.
It's all good. It's perfect. That's why we're together.
Yes.
So the second paragraph on 167. True riches and real prosperity are in the understanding that there is an omnipresent substance from which all things come, and that by the action of our mind, we can unify ourselves with that substance so that the manifestations that come from it will be in line with our desires and needs. Instead of realizing the inexhaustible, eternal, and omnipresent nature of that substance, we have limited it in our thought. We have thought that there is only about so much of it, and that we had better hurry in and get our share. We have thought that we must be careful how we spend it and put some of it away for a time when there won't be any more. In building up this consciousness of a limited supply, we have concluded that it is necessary to be economical and more saving. We begin to pinch in our mind, and then our money becomes pinched. For as we think in our mind, so we manifest in our affairs. This attitude pinches the channel through which our substance comes to manifestation and slows down the even flow of our supply. Then comes depression, hard times, shortage, and we wonder why, looking for some way to lay the blame on the government or on war or on industry or even on the Lord. But never by any chance do we put the blame where it belongs, on ourselves. This idea of pinching, right? Getting it pinched. I have been reminded of some friends that get really attached to their financial portfolio and how their stocks are doing, and how the all the markets are trending and all of that, and when there's a crash, and oh, I've lost all this money. But did you really ever have that money? You're placing your idea on this idea that you have this money, that you've never really even had it. Like, have you ever like cashed it all out and had a check and cashed that check so that you could just like stand there and hold all that money. No, it's a number on an account that you probably log in with your computer or on your cell phone to look at and see what it is, or you get a statement emailed to you from your broker, right? And then oh, some we see that something bad happens in the news, like, oh, I've lost so much money. You were hoarding that money.
Look,
There is not a spiritual law of hoarding.
Yeah, I've been experiencing that in this past year. I have some investment money that most of it I inherited, right? And the numbers had built up and in a place that made me feel good, right? And then suddenly those numbers started going down. And in truth, I stopped logging into the account because I decided what I knew was that in the rules of kind of how the market works and that sort of thing, you don't want to cash out when that's when you've actually lost, right? You're currently, if you're just looking at the numbers, you've either gained or lost value, not real money, like you're saying. It only becomes a real loss if you panic and cash it out. So I decided, since I knew that I was going to stand in agreement of not touching it, that ignorance would be bliss for me, and I needed to stop looking at the account for a little while. That unless I was going to cash it out, I needed to stop looking. And that's the route that I went on that. But I think it's important to say in this lesson, because I knew somebody once that said, I hope my last check bounces. And they actually had some really great intent of prosperity that they were saying. But the message that I received from my perspective was like, well, I don't hope that, because then somebody else is going to have to pay my final bill for me. I want to pay my bills. Having money in an investment account is not hoarding. It is, I love the term he uses here, an opportunity account, right? Whether you have that in a little savings account that that, other things come up. We've talked at my church that we had a group that didn't realize that there was an annual insurance bill that comes due at a certain time of the year. And suddenly the month after that, the bills looked like, oh my gosh, what happened? And it's like, yeah, what you do for that is if you know that your income is pretty regular, but once a year or once a quarter or whatever, you have a bill that comes in that's bigger than the rest of those months, then you do want to be a good steward and set aside the money that's not hoarding, that's prepaying a bill, right? So that you're living in an area of comfort. I'm comforted because I know that the bills, that not just that I'm getting in these bills that I have to pay, I'm paying the bills because there's benefit attached. There's some kind of a service attached to everything I'm paying. Insurance. I'm comforted because if something comes up that would need an insurance claim, we've got it because we paid the bill, right? My electric bill is higher in the winter because I turn the heat on. I benefit because I'm not cold, even if I am wearing a sweater in the house, right? There's reasons that we may set money aside that is not hoarding. It's about the intent. Are you setting money aside out of fear or out of wisdom? I think that's a good question to ask on whether it's hoarding or not.
I absolutely. And you might have $5 million in the bank. And if you are taking the money you have and you are paying your bills and you are keeping money in circulation, you are not hoarding. And if you only have $100 in the bank and you have a $50 bill that you need to pay and you refuse to pay it because you are in lack and limitation and not sure that, what happens if I have an emergency, then you're hoarding that money. So it's not about how much you have. It's about, are you willing to continue to be in the flow, right? And use what you have received. Every miracle that ever happens in our scripture, Jesus starts with what is available. What is available? And every time when we look at what is available to us right now, and use it to meet the needs that we have, we are stepping even closer into the kingdom of heaven. I
In
think.
that story of going and pulling coins out of the mouth of a fish, like if you just go with the physical story of it, that sounds kind of wacky, although it might be true, but where it really benefits us as opposed to how a man paid a bill thousands of years ago is the metaphysical lesson for us is when if you're standing there seemingly without anything in your pocket and the call for something to be paid comes up is to reach into that idea of how do I say this word, multiplicity, of multiplying. That's what fish represent for us, and that right there is where the wealth of what we need, the substance of what we need, will always be. And that's up here again. That's in our ideas, and our ideas multiplying and being divine in a way that will always take care of us.
Yes. Back to reading?
Yeah.
Okay. We're on 168. The pinching attitude of mind does even worse than bring people into want. If people would relax in mind, they would loosen up the nerves and muscles of the body. They must learn the cause of their strained, pinching mental attitude and let go of that first. Then the relief of the outer condition will become manifest as the condition itself did. Nearly all of us have been brought up in the belief that economy is an important thing, even a virtue. We should save our money and have a bank account. Saving money is the recipe for success given by many of our wealthy men. It is not a bad idea. There must be money available in banks to carry on business and industry. By having a bank account, we contribute to the welfare of the community. If we have the right idea, which is that the Lord is our banker, the word miser is from the Latin root from which also comes miserable. It describes the condition of those who love and hoard money, lands, and other material things. The stories that are told about misers are almost beyond credence, but nearly every day the press recounts the story of the pitiable straits to which misers have reduced themselves in order to add to their riches. They sometimes starve themselves to add a few dollars or even a few pennies to their hoarded store. The papers recently carried an item about a miser in New York worth $11 million. He goes from office to office in one of his great office buildings and picks up the waste paper from the baskets, which he sells for a few cents. Another, almost as wealthy, will not buy an overcoat but keeps his body warm by pinning newspapers under his housecoat. Such men are not only themselves miserable, but they make miserable all those around them. A New York paper tells of a miser worth millions when he died. Once burglars broke into his home, but they succeeded in getting out again without losing anything. You do I don't even understand that. Once burglars broke into his home, but they succeeded in getting out again with losing nothing.
You saying that the burglars wasted their time because they broke into
Yeah,
the home of a miser. He
yeah.
didn't have anything to begin. He had a
He
bunch of
didn't have
money in the
anything.
bank, maybe, but he hadn't
It's
bought
all in the
himself
bank.
anything to be stolen in the first place.
You do not need to lay up treasures for the future when you know that the law of omnipresent good is providing for you from within. As you evolve into this inner law of mind, you draw to yourself more and more of the good things of life. In your mind, see plenty everywhere. Yes, it is hard sometimes to overcome the thought that there is not enough, for it is an insidious thought that has been in consciousness for a long time. But it can be done. It has been done and is being done by others. The prosperity law is not a theory, but a demonstrated fact, as thousands can testify. Now is the time to open your mind and to see plenty. As you do so, you will find that there is an increase in your supply. Deny out of mind every thought of lack and affirm the abundance of all good. The infinite substance that infinite mind has given to you is all about you now, but you must lay hold of it. It is like the air, but you must breathe the air to get it. It is yours for the taking, but you must take it. You should cultivate this wonderful power of the mind to know that everything is bountiful, and this power to lay hold of the invisible substance in the mind, and by faith bring it forth into manifestation. Know with Job that we have as much now in reality and in truth as we ever had. There is no shortage, lack, or depression with God. Do not be fearful, regardless of how outer appearances may affect others. Keep your head up. Keep your head. I need to pause for a second because my mind went somewhere, and I need to point this out for just a second. There is no shortage, lack, or depression with God. I want to underline that depression here is talking about an economic depression, right? Depression, when Charles Fillmore was alive and writing about this, depression did not have the same connotation about mental issues and emotional distress of depression. So I just want to throw that out. We're talking about an economic depression when in this sentence.
And just an interesting, when you're bringing that up, I double checked the date on this. This was first printed in 1936. That was either at the tail end or kind of still in what we call the Great Depression, which was not about how people felt, but how much money was hanging around.
Exactly. I just felt I needed to say that. So now I'll go back and start reading again. Do not be fearful, regardless of how outer appearances may affect others. Keep your head when all about you are losing theirs. Refuse to load up your mind with the old material thoughts of economy to the point of denial of what you really need. Eliminate old limiting ideas. Assert your freedom and your faith as a child of God. Do not spend foolishly or save foolishly. The farmer does not throw away his wheat when he sows a field. He knows how much he must sow per acre and does not stint, for he knows that a stinted sowing will bring a stinted harvest. He sows bountifully, but not extravagantly, and he reaps bountifully as he has sown. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. He that soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he that soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. We cannot help but see that apparent lack and hard times are the results of states of mind. We have such things in the manifest world because men have not squared their action with divine principle. They have not used spiritual judgment. When they invest in stocks and property, they get the opinions of other men, sometimes those who call themselves experts. Then comes the crash, and even the experts prove how little they understand the real laws of wealth. We can go to an expert who really knows the law because he ordained it in the first place. And he is not far away, but right within ourselves. We can go within and meditate on these things in the silence, and the Lord will direct our personal finances. He will show us how to get the most and give the most with our money, and he will see to it that we have the supply that we need so that we may not be in want of anything needful to our good. This may not mean riches piled up or saved for a rainy day, but it will ensure our supply for today, the only day there is in truth. As we continue to grow in the consciousness of God as omnipresent life and substance, we no longer have to put our trust in accumulations of money or other goods. We are sure that each day's need will be met, and we do not deprive ourselves of today's enjoyment and peace in order to provide for some future and wholly imaginary need. In this consciousness, our life becomes divinely ordered, and there is a balance in supply and finances as in everything else. We do not deprive ourselves of what we need today. Neither do we waste our abundance in foolish ways, nor deplete it uselessly. We do not expect or prepare for adversity of any kind, for to do so is not only to invite it, but to show a doubt of God and all his promises. Many people bear burdens and deny themselves sufficient for their present needs in order to prepare for dark days that never come. When we look back over the past, we find that most of our fears were groundless, and most of the things we dreaded so much never happened. However, the things we prepared for probably did happen and found us not fully prepared, even after all our efforts in that direction. This should enable us to trust God now and rest in the positive assurance that he will supply every need as it arises. Things are never so bad as you think. Never allow yourself to be burdened with the thought that you are having a hard time. You do not want a soul structure of that kind and should not build it with these thoughts. You are living in a new age. Yesterday is gone forever. Today is here forever. Something grander for man is now unfolding. Put yourself in line with the progress of thought in the new age and go forward. And so that, friends, is the end of lesson 11 in Charles Fillmore's Prosperity.
It's a good lesson. There's a lot. I think there's a lot, and even there towards the end, a lot of potential areas of tripping if you don't stay focused on what the real message is, on releasing fear, on being wise and not, acting out of wisdom and not fear. It's not saying that you don't put, as he was saying there, like having a savings account and putting money in a savings account is not hoarding, it's being wise. It's not to say, in the last year, I had money set aside because in this house, I have a whole list of things that I want at some point. But that's where, understanding a need versus a want comes into play. And there are a whole bunch of things that I want, but I also enjoy being able to pay for it instead of creating debt. So I have a little account where I put money away and then I pick which of those things I'm going to do next. Now, if it was a need, for instance, I was going to do gas logs. If the issue was my house doesn't have heat, then I'm called upon to do something to make sure my house has heat for the health of the house and the water pipes and the comfort of my body. But I do have heat. I just would like the logs, right? So then when some unexpected expenses came up, in order to meet those and stay in a level of comfort financially, I pulled money that I had set aside for house stuff to pay a bill that needed to be paid today. And so was there hoarding? No. But does that mean that I went ahead and got the logs anyway? No, I did not go into debt to get logs because I wanted them. I said, well, I'm glad that this money was available to pay this other bill that came up. And I will get the logs when I need them or when it is comfortable to fulfill the want. You feel like you're walking a fence a little bit, Todd, but there's definitely, I think, a conversation worthy of having that I wanted to say in that, of using our divine wisdom, not just being smart people, but using our divine wisdom and using fear and hoarding.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing of hoarding is about, I'm afraid that if I spend this, I'm not going to be able to have what I need later. Right? And that is putting your faith in lack and not in putting your faith in an omnipresent, always available, free-flowing, unlimited substance that's always available to us.
Right? Always available to us all the time because it starts here.
Yes. Yes.
All right. That concludes lesson 11. If there's something we've not covered on it, if you have some other thoughts, advice, questions, please comment and let's have that conversation. And I am so filled with gratitude for Todd, but I'm filled with gratitude for all of you who are participating with us on this prosperity journey. And there's one more week to go. We'll do it next week.
Thanks everyone for being here, and thank you, Reverend Wally. Great discussion.
Love you all. Bye.
Bye.